Hi, everyone. Welcome to part two. We're just going to get right into it here. So let's get our lovely Flutter web app that's now using the base-href up into an S3 bucket. And that's where our web application will be stored. Something I just want to point out here, hosting a Flutter web app, I do see lots of people trying to host these things on like a DigitalOcean droplet or an EC2 on Amazon, a more traditional server. It's really not necessary, and in fact, it's kind of frowned upon, in my opinion, because you're wasting server resources and compute and all this kind of stuff to serve really what are static files. Flutter web app is a static web application, and sometimes that can be thought of, oh, it's my app's not static, it's dynamic, it's it changes. Or that's not really what I mean when I say static. It just means that all the assets you get, it's just code that runs in your browser. It's JavaScript, it's CSS, maybe if you have a splash screen or something. There's obviously your assets and everything, maybe some WebAssembly, but it's ultimately like a compiled, loosely compiled application that doesn't change. And thus, really, you just have to get these files to your user in the quickest way possible. You don't actually need to have a server involved unless you're doing something really fancy. Now, you might still have a server, but that should be a separate, for your API or whatever, that should be just a separate thing that you host somewhere else, like on Heroku or wherever, because they're decoupled. A Flutter web application is completely decoupled from any Flutter application. It's going to be decoupled from your backend. They're not tied in like a full stack, PHP app or Django app or whatever. I just want to get that out of the way and my meaning of the word static, because I've used that word on Reddit sometimes and people are like, it's not static. I'm like, yes, it is. It's static, at least by my definition, and I think it's a pretty common definition. Okay, enough about that. Let us get this set up. So we're going to create a bucket. What we want to make sure is the name of our bucket needs to essentially be the domain that we're going to be hosting this on. So in my case, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to use. I want to use something that's already a domain I already have on Cloudflare, just so I don't have to like go through the process of doing all that. But basically, you want to get your domain on Cloudflare, we're going to use. I have it up here somewhere. So I'm going to use this website, lanesavory.com. This is my son's name, Lane Savory. Not being used for anything yet. I just have it. And we're going to essentially not use this, but we're going to use a subdomain of it. So I'm just going to copy this so I don't spell it wrong, because that would be super embarrassing. And we're just going to do flutter.lanesavory.com. So for you, it could be, whatever domain you own, just get it onto Cloudflare. It's really easy to do. You just have to, if you bought it in Hover or GoDaddy, just point your name servers to Cloudflare and follow the instructions and you'll be good. Highly recommend Cloudflare for DNS. It's the first thing I do when I buy a new domain is bring it over. And that's the sponsor of today's video, Cloudflare. I wish it's not, but I will talk very highly of Cloudflare. We're going to do general purpose. You could, if you're doing, say, a second one, you could choose a bucket to kind of like copy some of the parameters over, but honestly, it doesn't copy everything. It copies some things and doesn't do others, so you might as well just not even ever do that. We're going to have ACLs disabled because we don't need that and is out of scope of what we're doing. Now, we do want to enable public access because these files need to be accessible by the outside world. So we'll do that, and we want to acknowledge that, it might result in the objects being public. It's like, yes, we want them to be public. We're not going to worry about versioning. We're not going to worry about tags. We're not going to worry about encryption. And that's basically it for the create bucket phase. So we'll create that. And now we'll open that up, and we want to go to the properties. The first thing we want to do here is actually enable static web hosting. So we're just going to click the edit button here, and we're just going to say enable. And what we want to do here is two very important things. You make sure it's host a static website, and we want to make sure the index.html is set here. And we also want to make sure if there's an error, meaning the file is not found, it also serves the index.html. And this will matter more in part 4. You could get away with this if you are using fragment routing. You don't really even need this second part, but I would say just put it. Redirection rules, we also don't have to worry about that. So let's save those changes. And what's cool now is we actually have a website. Now, if we click on this is like the built-in one that Amazon gives us based on the bucket name. And if we go here, it's just going to say forbidden because we don't have any files here. But basically, if right now we went into our objects here and we actually uploaded an index.html and perhaps the files to go with it, we'd be essentially serving that. Now, you could, you could stop here and you could go upload, and we could just upload that whole directory here and go. But that would be really tedious every time you wanted to deploy to basically like, upload files. So we want to automate this at least a little bit right now. So that's what we're going to do next, is actually how do we upload our files here. So something that's important that you will have to do, and I'm not going to do it because doing these kinds of things on a stream are always dangerous, but I'm going to show you how to do it. We need to essentially create an API key, key pair, like a client ID and a secret that we can use to basically communicate with Amazon's API to be like, hey, I want to upload these files here. So you want to go to IM right here, and there's easy way and hard way to do it. You could just go to your root user, and I forget even how to do that now, and it's probably not the the right way. But basically, what we want to do is you want to create a user, and let's I am going to do this, but not actually use this. Let's just do like something called tester, and we don't care about providing access to the Amazon console, and we want to essentially add to attach policies directly, and you want to search for S3. And you want to use, and again, if you really want to be careful, you can make this a lot better by not using like necessarily Amazon S3 full access. You can basically make a permission and policy. It's like, it's only for this bucket, it's only for reading or writing and that kind of stuff. But this will work for most cases, Amazon S3 full access. And we would go and create user. And there's our, tester user. And what you'd want to do here is click on it and go to security credentials, and you want to create an access key right here. And here you would just choose other is fine, or you could use command line actually. And we click next and give it a tester, give it a real name. And here you'll have your access key, which that's public. It's fine. I can show that on the stream. And your secret access key, which I'm not going to show, and we're not even going to use. I'm just use the one I already have. But yeah, wanted to kind of just walk you through that. So copy those somewhere safe, into a password manager. It's something you don't want to keep in your code, although I am going to kind of have it in my code for this version, but you're going to see in part 3, the next part, when we actually introduce GitHub Actions, we're going to be storing that in our secrets manager there. So just keep that somewhere safe. Yeah. Okay, so we have that stuff. Cool. Now we're going to keep the script as is, and we're going to do a few more things here. So first of all, we are going to run a command. And I'm just going to paste it in and walk you through it. So you do need to install the AWS CLI here. And to do that, AWS CLI install. I'll show you how to do it. Look, I've clicked on this before. There's probably a download. Yeah, you would choose, Mac OS or Windows or whatever, and then you would, get the GUI installer or the command line installer, whatever you prefer to do. You just need to get it. If I type AWS in here, you'll see I already have it installed. It's probably going to throw some kind of error because it's not really a command here, but let's see what it does. It's just hanging, which is a sign that it's trying to do something and not just found. But anyways, you're going to want to you're going to want to install that. And after you install it, you might need to make a new terminal tab so that it gets sourced properly. Depends on the way you install it. But here's the command. We want to run the AWS command, basically the AWS executable, which should be on your path after you do the install. And we're going to say the first command is the first parameter is S3 because that's essentially what we're working with. And we want to say we're going to copy, and we're going to take our build web output from build web output from the release folder. We want to basically copy that whole folder up to whatever our bucket name is, which we're going to put in a bit. And we then go into that release folder. And we want to say recursive because we're not just uploading one file, we're uploading everything and its subdirectories and all that kind of stuff. And the Amazon CLI will do that for us and figure it out. And then importantly, we want to set cache control on this. So we want it to be public. Max age, this is a large number. This is how many seconds there are in 1 year, which is usually I think the max you can set a cache anyways, but that should be long enough. And we can say immutable, just kind of saying, hey, this isn't going to ever change, because that's the idea, right? With this is we're never going to be replacing files that are inside here. We're just going to be, if we want to put in a new version, it's going to be 0.0.1, and that folder will also be immutable. But anyways, hopefully that makes sense. So bucket name, let's put this at the top of our file. Export bucket name equals, and I think we did flutter.savory.io or no .com. Okay, so we want to run that. Then we want to run what are the other ones? Yes, I'm going to put the other two in right now. So we want to also upload the index.html. So same kind of thing, except this one's not recursive. It's just a single file. And we're telling it not to go inside the release folder, right? We're saying just go in the root. So it kind of looks like this, right? We have the files, all the files in there got upload. Then we're saying, hey, upload this file and upload this file. Now the main difference is cache control, no store, no cache, must revalidate for both of these, because we want these files to be never cached. And what this will do is kind of tell the the server, essentially the bucket, hey, like, don't just use something that you have, cache somewhere, but it also, adds headers to the file when someone's downloading it, so that your browser also knows, oh, this is a file I shouldn't cache. Now, browsers are still really aggressive, and we're going to have to do something a little bit extra to make that even better, but this will work. Okay, so we're going to do all that. Now, the other things that, the other part we need to do is when you install the Amazon CLI, you will have to authorize it, and you can do that just follow the instructions. Basically, it lets you, paste in the key pair that you want, and it creates like an AWS credentials file in your home directory. However, in my case, I have multiple AWS accounts, multiple, roles and users, you could, and I wouldn't recommend, don't version control this if you do it, you could just put at the very top of your file these two keys, and I'll paste them in here without actually the value. So you can put your, this will basically say like, if we put these in, and this could be like ABC123, and this would be that, whatever sort of thing, it'll now, the AWS CLI will see that, because this is basically becoming now an environment variable, and it will use this versus what you have elsewise. So that's just something to note, and something you might just need to do if you can't figure out how to do the credentials, but that's what we're going to do. AWS key, I'm just going to, put some stars in here and some stars. Stars. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to commit, one more star. I'm going to commit my code, because this is all we need really for the part 2, I think. And I just want to make sure I do the commit before I, possibly put in some secret keys, which we'd never want to do. I don't actually have a remote yet, so I can't push. But I have the commit ready, because I want to make sure when I put out the series that, you can go to commit 1 and see where we're at, and commit 2 and that kind of thing. All right, so what we would do now is let's just run this, even though I don't actually have my keys in here. Let's just see if it even tries to do something. So we're going to run the deploy again, and this will take a bit because it has to do that. Actually, yeah, no, it's fine. It's going to do our Flutter build all the same sort of way. It's going to move the stuff over, and then it's going to attempt to upload. However, we are going to see an error because obviously my credentials are not correct here. But let's just make sure that it gets to that. All right, here we go. So the build web is done, and now it's moving the stuff around. And you'll see, did we change this? Oh, we did, yeah, 0.0.1, perfect. So you see we got the 0.0.1 folder, and if we go to our index.html, we should see the base-href is 001. Beautiful. So everything's working, but then we're seeing some errors. We're seeing like AWS key is not existence. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, again, this will be better in part 3 from a security point of view, because we are going to be doing this as a GitHub action where we can have the secrets manager. But I'm going to very quickly put in my keys here without recording and run it and start the run, and then I'm going to set it back just so I don't accidentally commit that code, because that would be bad. And we'll try to run this for real. So stand by 1 second. It kind of worked now. You'll see it's uploading all these files. Now there's some weird thing that happened here. We'll look at that in a minute. But let's just go to our S3. And it should be, we'll just go back here. You can search for S3. And we want to find our lovely file here, our bucket. And in here, yeah, you'll see we have the index.html, the version.json, and then the 002. And yeah, this looks all right to me. Okay, cool. So we now have this running, or we have this up. And let's actually take a look now. If we actually go to our properties of our bucket again and go down to the static web hosting and click this, hopefully, oh, look at that. We have an error. And that's because we have to do a couple more things to our bucket permission-wise. So let us go to our permissions of our bucket. There's 2 things I want to do here. The first is we essentially want to add a bucket policy. And I'm just going to paste this in, and this is something, you can easily Google. Maybe I'll even put it in the show notes. But this is just a bucket policy saying, hey, we want to only allow, public read for static websites. Anyone can do it, basically. And the action is getting an object, meaning we're just getting, a file. And we need to make sure that this is whatever our S3 bucket is, which was flutter.lanesavory.com. Let's save that change. Now, while we're here, there's one other thing I want to do is edit the cores. And if you don't make it to part 4, this won't matter. I just figured let's just do it now, and maybe I'll remind people when we get to part 4. Because there's specifically a file here we want to make sure that Flutter, in terms of the web browser, can access through cores, which is, this annoying thing that makes browser, adds security so that browsers can't talk to things that they're not supposed to keep our users safe. But this is basically just saying, hey, we're going to allow, getting and basically allow this to be accessed via cores. Doesn't matter for right now, but let's see if our first change actually, fixed this. And it looks like it did. So there, look, we have this running in the cloud. It's running on an S3 bucket. That's kind of cool. And, it works. And it's just a Flutter app. Of course, it's going to work. And if we view the source of it, again, we should see that it is using that base-href of this, which, we can click on, which won't do anything. But we can go to the Flutter Bootstrap and we'll see, okay, cool, it's getting loaded. Obviously it is, because otherwise, how would this load? So there, we have, half of the puzzle done. And we have this set up in a way that we can, essentially deploy with a command. Let us now actually point our domain here so that we can, see this in action. So two things that are going on here that, are kind of annoying. One is this is not secure. It's just an HTTP. If we try to do HTTPS, I believe we will get an SSL error. I could be wrong. Yeah, it looks like it's just hanging. And that's because, it's just not, there's no SSL certificate. So let's just cancel that. And enter Cloudflare. So let's load that up. So I'm in my Cloudflare domain, and I'm going to go to DNS here. And what essentially I want to do is add a new record. We're going to add a CNAME. And that CNAME we want to make sure is whatever our subdomain was. And now what we want to do is essentially use this full URL here, but we do not want to include the HTTP or HTTPS or anything. We just want it to be basically, it's the bucket name. I know it's hard to see here. I kind of really get annoyed by, even though I love Cloudflare, this is probably my biggest pet peeve. It's like, how do you even read this? And we don't want that slash either. We just want it to be, a valid, basically, domain. And yes, we want proxy on. In Cloudflare, really depending on what you're doing, sometimes you want proxy on, sometimes you don't. In this case, for serving static files, we definitely want it on because we want Cloudflare to kind of take over and be able to control the cache and all that kind of stuff. And also apply the SSL certificate, which is important. Now, the SSL certificate, you should by default just have it on. If you go to SSL and TLS, you just want to make sure that that it is turned on, and if not, turn it off. It is currently on with flexible. I don't know. I've never touched this, but if for some reason you're not getting an SSL thing, that's why. So now let's try going. Now, what I like to recommend is anytime you do a DNS change, wait a couple minutes even from Cloudflare, just because if you go too early, your browser might cache, the theme of today's thing that, it doesn't point anywhere. And then you kind of have to flush your DNS or use a different browser or go on a different Wi-Fi. However, I'm feeling lucky today. So let's actually just try going to this. So Flutter dot, and we are looking good. So you'll see we are on our domain now. It is loading. We could add a splash screen if we want it to be better. Sure, cool. All right, so that's great. Our thing is working. And now if we wanted to, change some code, and let's actually, kind of test that out. Let's update our, actually, I'll do that update in a minute because I want to put these guys back in. Actually, whatever, we'll do it now. I'll pause for that part. And let's go to our main.dart and let's, maybe change our theme data to colors dot, what's really different than purple? Orange, I guess. Let's use deep orange. Let us see if that worked. So let's go back here and let's refresh this. And we're just waiting. And we'll see it's orange now. So we got our latest version, and we'll see in viewing the page source that that it's good. And I didn't do a hard refresh. I didn't do anything fancy. Now there are cases, especially if we visit that site a lot, that we might still have, people basically getting the cached version because actually the index.html is being cached. And I know we set that when we uploaded to S3. We're like, hey, don't cache this, but Cloudflare might just take that over and do something fancy there. So now we're going to set up some Cloudflare rules very quickly for basically our files to say cache this, don't cache that, and then we should be pretty set. Okay, so let's do that.